and everything is great, because ultimately speaking of, hi everybody, welcome to your weekly coaching call. My name is Lee-honish. I am joined by David-Bartels of Home Loan Advocates. How are you today, David?
Pretty good, actually. How are you?
Very good. I want to thank everybody for being on the call live here. Thank you for everybody who apparently is listening to the replays. The numbers are phenomenal. Good for all the coaching students, and the podcast does exceptionally well. As well. That's bad English on a Wednesday morning. With all of that said, David is the #1 distressed consultant. I like that term. How about distressed consultant?
Whatever you think.
Okay. He is the #1 short sale mitigation specialist in the entire country. David, tell everybody a little bit about your company.
Well, we're home loan advocates, and we work with distressed home work. We've kind of created a national alliance of like-minded realtors who are interested in contributing to their community by working with a handful of homeowners at a time to help them avoid foreclosure. Either by getting a loan modification or one of the 7 other alternatives that we know, in order to help them keep their house or transition to a new house, depending on what their preference is. We're also, we do it in that process. We end up helping people do a lot of transactions. Many of those are short sales. So we handle the short sale negotiations. We provide coaching on loan modifications and other foreclosure avoidance options to help both the realtor and the homeowner achieve their objective of staying in the house.
There you go. This is all part of the Monster Marketing Program. As many of you know, all you have to do is type in, well, I didn't see that coming. I typed in monstermarketing.net, which apparently I didn't know that the listingmonster.com is correct. I think I own monstermarketing.net as well. I just don't think I've done anything with it. Go to the listingmonster. So. I own most of them. I mean, I really do, which is really weird. Go to the listingmonster.com. It'll probably back run through Google still, which it does, or you can go through lee-honish.com. There it is. I'm using a new computer again. I finally broke down after having dropped my personal computer at a wedding last summer. I finally squeezed every bit of life out of it, and I'm just trying to adjust to a new computer. And it's all based on what Google has stored as my search pattern and passwords. So I'm still trying to adjust. It's been a couple of days. I'm not doing very well with it overall. I pulled out a HP Pavilion out of mothballs and have been using it. I think I'm going to break down and get an Apple, David. I think it's time. I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I can't. It's very fundamentally difficult. You're an Apple user. It's very difficult for me to say that I give up on all of this. But go to lee-honish.com, which didn't come up either. Okay, thanks for telling me my domain is getting ready to expire in June. It should go to, this is all very bizarre. How much of this is actually, okay. Why is it parked? I don't even understand any of this. Go to the listingmonster.com. It'll be fine. This is my computer just giving me a hard time. Yeah, lee-honish.com, listingmonster.com. I'll look at GoDaddy while we cover some of these questions. Let's start right out of the gate with Jose Sanchez Alvarez's question. What do you think of the current stock market scenario, David? Do you think the investors will start investing in real estate and retrieving their investment from the stock?
That's above my wisdom, I think. I think that there's always volatility in the stock market, and I think that you're going to see, as there's more volatility, and which seems to be trade related from what little I know. I haven't been paying that close attention the last few days, but all I remember is hearing something about the tariffs going up on China and then the stock market reacting poorly to that. And I guess that volatility has kind of continued. So anytime that there's a flight to safety, when people perceive there's risk, you're going to see that money flowing into interest rate type programs like 10-year bonds and 30-year bonds and some of those other programs. So that would have a tendency to beef things up and could actually drive rates a little lower. I mean, we're actually starting to hear rumors that the Fed may actually decrease, which might trigger a decrease across the board.
There you go. Donald Ross. So David, who are you tagging? NODs, NOTS. Lee used to love NOTS. Now he loves NODs. Just recorded. And you, I do like newer. I do. I'll say this. So here's how this came up, and I'll give you some back end to it, David. So we went to the trouble of analyzing the data of first tag or first NOD to actual taking action or transfer of title. And we've discussed it before. It can be anywhere from, a year, 18 months, or 2 years before some people take action. If you look at the bulk of the number of people we've tagged over the course of a year. My answer to that was, that's probably correct. So you're looking at creating a drip line. So logically, to me, it would make more sense to try to catch people earlier than later. That's the backstory. From a data standpoint, what's your perspective?
Well, it's interesting. I had a meeting on this subject yesterday and last week because I've got a new person doing tagging and doing data, and all of a sudden our results go from the 20% range that we had come to expect to almost zero. So, I mean, we've talked about this many times, and when that happens, it's either the tags aren't going up or you've got really bad data. Now, in this case, I'm pretty certain that the tags are actually going up because the tagger is frustrated and he's got no financial incentive not to go out and put tags up and say he did because he's not getting paid to put tags up. And, on the method I have with him. So he's motivated to get some face-to-face meetings. And so when we take a look at the data, and the data seems to be okay. And so the big difference is that we really expanded from NOTS to NODs. And when we did that, because we got a lot more names, we saw a big decline in the response rate. So yesterday I tightened it up and we went back to NOTSs, and there's fewer, and we're going to tag only those, and we're going to see if we're just really going to experiment. So I'm going to be isolating, NOTs with against NODs. We're not going to tag both in the same week for 2 or 3 weeks. What we're going to do is we're going to tag only NOTS and then only NODs, and we're going to track the respective responses and see. I don't know. There shouldn't really be a difference in those things. My preference for NOTs was because they had a deadline. They had this imminent date on the calendar that was going to result in them losing their house if they didn't take some evasive action. And so I always enjoyed and felt like everyone benefited as a result of that pressure. But we started expanding to the NODs because we just weren't getting enough in our market. Things are pretty good up here, and so we weren't seeing enough NOTs, so we expanded to NODs. But our tag conversion has fallen off. So I'm taking a look at it. Ask me again in a week or two, and I'll tell you what progress we're making.
So I put out 48 tags yesterday. I have not gotten an update for today. Generally, it takes a full my opinion, 24 to 48 hours before you get all the results in. So the first evening, I had a 10% callback rate on my 48 tags. I had 5 calls. Now, 5 of them declined. Okay. Some said lose the info, right? And that's fine. And we've talked about that before. And every time it was said to me, Of course, Diana raises an eyebrow because it's not an actual appointment. And I go, it's another phone number. That's just the way I see it. It's another piece of data that I can work with on
That's right.
somebody that will strategically somewhere in the future have to take an action. I understand what's happening in the market. I guess we should talk about this. If you look at the market based on the way the numbers are being portrayed, and certainly by the way defaulted homeowners are being treated by the bank, I don't know why everybody doesn't not pay for a couple of years based on the perception I see in the market, which is don't pay or you're underwater. The bank's going to cut you some kind of deal or renegotiate, and they're more than likely not going to foreclose. It would be my advice to almost everybody who has a mortgage right now, except for the, of course, the credit impacts and all the other negative things that could occur from not making a payment. But by and large, David, the banks are having this very heavy-handed, yeah, it's okay, we'll forgive a year, we're going to give you a loan mod, just get it restarted. And it paints an interesting picture about the real estate market. It shifted in the fourth quarter of last year. Certainly, we haven't had a decrease in the number of people defaulting. In fact, what we've seen, and we've talked about it, people that are 3 months behind on their car payments is at 10% of all drivers. It's a record high ever in the United States. 30, 60, 90 DQs are up. We're seeing 30, 60, 90 DQs up on credit card payments. So why wouldn't it seem logical to everybody on the planet that defaulting on home loans would be up? And I realized that the number of actual mortgages has decreased. And I was just reading an article on this topic. The seasonal adjusted number that NAR puts out or that people talk about are based on historical averages. And if half of your market is non-owner occupied that were purchased all cash and by Wall Street, wouldn't it naturally decrease or make the numbers look like they've decreased exponentially? I mean, I'm no rocket scientist. I'm just an ex-banker who really isn't very good at math, David. But if we have half the number of mortgages than we had, say, last crash, right, that are actual active mortgages, and we're comparing numbers from this era to that era, I'm going to go out on a limb. The numbers are going to look lower by percentage if you compare them historically, or as NAR likes to call it, seasonally or annually adjusted. And I don't think that's fair. I think people are struggling. It's just there's this very heavy-handed approach to what the banks are promising, what's going on. For me, I can understand the frustration. I'd love to get your feedback.
Well, I don't really know how to answer that. So I think that there's a lot of frustration. I guess it depends on your perspective. Are you asking specifically about the bank's level of frustration or the consumer's frustration?
Well, no, let's talk about ours. As real estate professionals who work one particular niche, or at least we recommend that you work one particular niche. We can go into that long explanation for anybody who's new on the call, right? Yes, it's easier to work with a distressed homeowner than it's going to be an expired, canceled, probate, or divorce. I mean, just from a data type, there's less competition, all of that. In real estate, there just seems to be this big glazed over topic. Okay, so I guess this is my first question. You're a successful broker. You've had to work very hard to get to the top of that mountain. There are just less available real estate transactions, but there doesn't seem to be less. Let's start here. There are less real estate agents. I mean, the same number of real estate agents, but less transactions. To me, right, if I was a realtor right now, I would be frustrated by that.
Well, okay. I'm going to use my favorite statistic, and that is 1 in 95 adults in California has a real estate license. So there's about 205,000 licensed agents in the state of California. We know that about 100,000 of them did 0 transactions. And we know that and we know that only about 20% of them did 8 or more transactions in the year. And so, yes, so the answer is yes, there's a lot of competition for that. And the question is, how do you stand out? I mean, even when I go on a listing presentation, right now, every single person I meet with knows somebody that has a real estate license. And so, and one of the top 3 reasons why we miss a listing is because they can't say no to that person. So you've got to the person that they know, even if they're not successful by any standard of which you measure success. So what happens is that you end up having to create your own niche. And for me, when I think about all the things that I can do, is I can run a FSBO funnel. I can just call FSBOs all day long, and there's lots of training out there on how to do that. I can do expireds, and there's plenty of those. And in our market, 25% of every listing that goes on the market expires, withdrawn, or is canceled. And there's plenty of good training on that. You can do door knocking. You can do the smart list. You can do EDDM, a lot of direct mail. You can do cold calling. You could hire companies and buy leads. There's lots of ways to do it. And what I've come to the conclusion after experimenting with all of those is that in terms of percentage of face-to-face meetings that convert, Distressed offers the greatest opportunity for that, which is why I continue to put a focus on it, even though it only represents about 2% of my market now. But that 2% of my market still adds up to a substantial number of opportunities. But more importantly, instead of 50% of the 15,000 agents that I compete with on a daily basis competing with me for an expired or a FSBO, I don't know what the number is. I just made up 50%. I've got very few, if any, people who are competing for that distressed space. They don't like it. It takes too long. They don't have the expertise. Whatever the reason is they seem to stay away from it. And that creates the greatest opportunity for us to have immediate success. And the best part of it is once you get going, it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you anything. All you're offering is goodwill. All you're offering is to help somebody out of a difficult situation who is desperate to find alternatives to foreclosure. And we know that over 50% of them are going to list. I think the number is 56% will list within 12 months, as opposed to FSBOs or expireds or open houses where those numbers are well under 10%. And the number of people competing for those, it's significantly greater. So yeah, so there might be more expired leads, but there's many hundreds of times percent number of people competing for those leads. I'd rather be a big fish in a small pond.
I completely agree with you. Okay, now let's talk about from a data standpoint, right? I'm pulling my data. I go out. I put out 48 tags or whatever number I do in a week. I'll be going out again tomorrow, and I get, I put out my 48 tags and I get 5 to 10 phone calls, and they all decline. How should I view that?
Well, let me ask you this. If you were to send out 500 postcards and nobody responded, how would you respond?
I know for a fact because I've done it, or my favorite where I actually write out, fold, and put a letter into an envelope and do it really the hard way. I can't speak from personal experience. I feel dumb as hell.
But here's my answer. At the end of the day, I'm like you. I've got 5 people whose phone number, when they say no, they decline, they say no. They don't mean no, N-O. What they're saying is they don't know K-N-O-W enough to make a decision. And so because it's not what they expected when they first call, or maybe it's not what it's up, doesn't mean they're still not good candidates. Doesn't mean that they're still not going to list their property or sell their property at some point in the very near future. All they're saying no to is the package, and they could say no to that package just because they're suspicious, because they're afraid that they're going to be taken advantage of. They're not ready to face the reality, and that's fine. So now when they respond, I don't just have now what they've done is they've raised their hand. I can attach an address, I can attach a name, and now I can attach a phone number to that person, for which I can now continue to provide additional information. And now my options to provide them information are to call them, are to text them, are to do direct mail to them, and to door knock them. So now I'm in a much better position to respond and to follow up and nurture that relationship than I was before. And because they don't know it was you, because the call center is anonymous, you can be as bold or direct as you want. So I might send them a solicitation from Home Loan Advocates, and I might also send them a solicitation from my Help Yourself Full Service Realty brand. So I'm targeting them from two different angles. Okay, I perceive that I'm two different entities, and if they call or respond to either one of them, then I get the opportunity in order to help them. If I can get to them engage to a text or get to engage at the front door, then I can get their email, which makes the follow-up significantly easier.
There you go. With that, let us insert gratuitous commercials in the middle of the show. David, once again, tell everybody who showed up late on the live call and remind people who are re-listening, who exactly are you?
Well, I'm David-Bartels, Home Loan Advocates, and we're consultants for homeowners who are facing distress, and really more importantly, the agents and investors who are looking to assist them by helping them understand their alternatives to foreclosure so they can avoid foreclosure and keep their house if they want or are able to, or to get transitioned into something else that would give them more safety and security in terms of their long-term housing options. If they wanted to call me, 805-413-8000, 805-413-8000. Of course, email is david@homeloanadvocates.com, david@homeloanadvocates.com. Advocates is plural.
I always make the blind assumption that they're watching the video. Also, if you're interested in finding out more about Monster Marketing, type in lee-honish.com. If I did this correctly, there you go. It'll take you right to a direct page with a video. You can watch a video, scroll down, and it will tell you all about the wonderful world of Monster Marketing. And you can join this call live and get actual appointments this week. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I mean, you're getting actual data, you're getting actual clients. There's no part of me that doesn't believe I'm not going to get a face-to-face appointment this week. And with all of that said, Friday, I will be doing a marketing event in Pasadena. Go to alwaysbemarketing.org.com was taken. .org. Go to alwaysbemarketing.org. I will be in Pasadena with Fred. For those of you who know, I've been doing a marketing event out in Palm Springs quarterly with Fred. And generally, I've become the general fix-it guy for every business under the stars. So whoever you are listening to this, or you can refer this to your friends, if you are anywhere related to the real estate industry, if you're a small business owner, if you got a friend who's struggling, send them to the event. It's free. I think for my own personal amusement, I'm going to brand and market my cat on Friday, because everybody gets confused. Oh, you just do real estate. Oh, you just do. It doesn't work that way. The formulas are all exactly the same. It'll be Friday, the Donald R. Wright Auditorium in Pasadena. You could scroll down, register for free. Again, it's alwaysbemarketing.org. With all of that said, let me segue back to where we started, which was going out and putting up tags. I don't know if any of you are struggling with going out and putting up tags. Let's take a couple of questions. That's a good segue. Tomboy, do you need to give them your email address, or can you use the email if you have it and the owner did not opt in? Do you need them to give you their email address, or can you use the email if you have it and the owner did not opt in? I don't believe, okay, I'm going to give you my opinions because I do a lot of email marketing. I don't believe anybody email opts in. I sure as hell didn't email or voicemail opt in to the sheer volume of calls I get on my phone. So I don't understand, and I'm being perfectly honest. I need your feedback on this because I'm struggling with this one, David. I get a lot of calls. I realize that my information, my cell phone has gotten scraped from the web, probably scraped from Facebook. The data is available for purchase. If you fill out any website, your cell phone becomes public data. So, and I've also put myself on the do not contact registry, right? Agents in real estate will cold call an expired lead at 6 in the morning and find that completely acceptable. This is not a knock on you, Tom, so don't take it that way. But when it comes to the ethics of sending out an email or sly broadcasting or calling a client who didn't want information, people fundamentally have difficulty with that. Why do I not have a problem with it? And why do people have hurdles with opt-in situations or blacklisting, or did you look them up on the obviously it's not occurring anywhere in the United States. It's clearly not happening. And in real estate, agents just shamelessly calling expireds at any hour of the day is remarkable, let alone real estate investors who are grabbing that data. What's your feedback for yours, again, a very successful broker? What's your feedback to your realtors?
Okay, so I only run into this when I'm running FSBO and expireds. Okay, everybody else is entered into our database voluntarily. So we don't call do not call. If it's on a do not call list, and we use Redex for our expired and FSBOs. So when we get it from there, it will tell us whether or not they're on the do not call list or not. And we honor that. We won't call them. But what the exception is if they called us. Now, if they respond to us and they engage with us, we do that. Now on FSBOs, where we're getting their information because they're advertising and their number is in the public domain, and they advertise a product for sale, and we are calling in response to that product, we have every right to be able to do that. So whether or not they're on the do not call list or not really isn't really that big a deal if they've inquired about your service or they're advertising something for sale. Now, in terms of the email opt-in, the CAN-SPAM Act really basically, and I don't know all the details, but it's not where it's theoretically it's where you get the list. But where you get in trouble is when you're just sending things to people and you're not giving them the option to opt out. So you have to have some sort of method for unsubscribe in the email for them to be able to get out, and then you really need to honor that if they do.
I agree.
My general feeling, I don't want to do business with people who don't want to do business with me. And I don't want to go out with girls who don't want to go out with me. Begging just really isn't sexy.
I'm used to it, David. So you've discussed my home life now openly on this call. So actual and true. I plead negotiate with cats. So what do I know? With all of that said, Tom, I wasn't trying to be calling you out specifically. So any data, I think the point of what David and I are trying to say is any data that's captured from putting up a monster tag, even if they say they've declined, that's great. That's great.
Well, but remember, he was talking about email, I think, right? So just think about this. If they call the call center and the call center says, would you like us to send you your alternatives of foreclosure? And they say, yeah, they say, what email address? And they give it to you. They just opted in. You just have to give them the ability to opt out now. So that's what opt-in is versus double opt-in. And nothing, you don't have to double opt-in. A lot of companies who are doing it, they do that because they don't want a high bounce rate and they don't want a high unsubscribe rate. And, so if you sign up with a server like that, a service provider like that, then you're going to you're going to have to jump through their hoops because they're only trying to protect the integrity of their servers. But when you're doing it on your own, you don't have any obligation to double up then, but you do have an obligation to let them exit at any time by unsubscribing.
Okay, so I'll expand on Tom's point. Yeah, because I am an email marketer, I can discuss this pretty openly. Do you need to give them your email? Okay, we were talking about email, not cell phone. I understand, Tom, but in my world, data is data, not just ethics. If we get tagged as spammers, can hurt our marketing. Yeah, there's a thing called a blacklist. There's a blacklist. You don't have enough people to email, and I mean this in a good way. You don't have enough people to send emails to get your website, your email address blacklisted. You just simply don't. Blacklisting or getting really hurt the way people talk about it, and I can tell you this firsthand, having been fired by many an email provider, since many of you who are on this call or listening to this have gotten my emails, and you know the sheer volume of emails I send. And there's a reason for that. People have a 3-second attention span. I realize that a percentage of people are going to treat me as spam. I've said this when it comes to working with my client list, right? So I've got an email list of people that we've tagged that have given us their email address. I don't mind sending an email, and for some people this sounds unheard of. Once every 3-4 days in my universe, I send them the same message to see if they're still opening and interested. I still brand the same phone number. I still want the same activity to occur. I know many of them they're in a drip line. They're in a long-term drip line. What I bet with the people that I meet with face to face, and tell me if I'm crazy for thinking like this, David, I send to the front door the most genuine, caring human being that I can in Kevin, right? He builds this great relationship. They're not in a position to do anything right now. They're going to play the spin the wheel of the bank game or whatever they're into. Maybe they've even gone a step further. They've met with Diana. Now they've had a actual real estate conversation, but they still haven't taken action. It's on me and my department to follow up and continue to brand Diana and Kevin. Am I crazy for thinking like this, David?
Well, no, because you guys work as a team. That's how we do it too. When you see all the marketing that I do it on behalf of our group. I'm trying to generate enough business for all of us, and while we all have our different responsibilities, we're all achieving our objectives together. And the system doesn't really work without everybody's individual contribution. So, no, it's much easier to brand. For me, it's much easier to brand an entity than it is to brand individuals. But in this case, you're the ops guy behind the scene. Nobody needs to know who you are. You're not meeting them at the door. You need no credibility. Your job is to get them face to face with somebody who's going to help them solve their problem.
I use David's, I hate to say it because everybody thinks it's a cop-out. I use David's 21-day email campaign. I do. I use information from, what is it? It's advocate.org, homeloanadvocate.org, David?
Home loan, you can either way. You got homeloanadvocates.com and you have homeloanadvocates.org. The .com is .com is for realtors and the .org is for consumers.
Right. And because I use the branding and I say that I'm an advocate and I use this information, this website is a resource to me. So those of you that are in David's program that have those resources, why wouldn't you email? Why wouldn't you use? It sounds like a gratuitous plug. It's not. I have said everything I can say. I'm a former banker. Those of you on the call are real estate agent. You can only go to the links of what you can go to. I can say this as a guy who's a professional marketer and a consultant. I will steal blindly. If I'm given the information or I pay for the information, I'm going to use it in some way, shape, or form. I don't know why more people don't use more information that's available on the web. You buy a tool, you use the tool. advocate marketing is a tool that I can use for my clients when I send out an email, when I don't have something clever to say, but I want to continue. If I realize that nobody's going to take an action, right? I go and meet with them. I don't go and meet with them. It doesn't really matter to me, David. But I have a data point and I can follow up, so I can brand Kevin or Diana or the team or advocate, homeowner advocate. I'm speaking fast. Whatever I can do to keep top of mind and keep that in their system. And I see from email marketing, to your point, Tom, this is why I love email. If I put a subject line, are you still behind on your payments, comma, and still working with the bank, question mark, and they're opening that message, it's on me. And I would say this for everybody on the call and anybody listening, your number one job in real estate, okay? Number one job in real estate, if you don't have a marketer working for you, is to market yourself. You have to continually market yourself, and you have to be very casual. It's almost like it has to be third party. When I'm doing stuff for lee-honish, I'm hiring myself. I don't put myself over. I'm putting over whatever the product is. If I'm putting over a podcast, that's what I'm branding and putting over. If I'm doing monster marketing, that's what I'm doing. If I'm talking about digital marketing, that's what I'm doing. So for any of you on this call, having the available tools and data available to, I'll give you a perfect example. This Purple Cow event, which was just a slip of the tongue of Fred, who wrote up a Facebook page, was a great idea. It's based on Seth Godin, Purple Cow, making yourself stand out in marketing, right? But he didn't really write up any tremendous content that would make anybody want to take action. So I actually went and pulled actual Seth Godin quotes. I found somebody who this is somebody else's writing. He broke down Seth Godin's point. And then I went a step further and I looked for digital marketing events that were based on branding. And I used their bullet points to push this event because people want to take action. So if I'm building a squeeze page or an email, or I'm looking for a script, why wouldn't I, as a person who's in advocate marketing, again, a gratuitous plug, David, I'm just all over the place on this, use this information to keep, right? I don't know when they're going to take action. I mean, that's the game here. I guess what everybody wants is the mythical formula. When are they going to take action?
There's the $1 million question, right?
Right? When are they going to take action? So what can I do if I can't take action? And I know that that's a very long answer for Tom, but really the truth is, and you know this, how often can I brand myself, rebrand myself, and remind them of the message that I first instilled to them, stay at the top of their mind, stay in a position as an advocate, and all of you are in the position of marketing. I'll say it again. You are all in the position of being your own marketer. So you are branding your message repeatedly. How many times a week do you meet with your marketing people, David?
How many times a week do I meet with them?
Yeah.
Well, I have short meetings with them all the time, but I would say that one very solid meeting a week, and I'm trying to do more of that because we are really kind of ramping up our social engagement. So, but it's a lot of time. I have trouble finding time to do all the other things. I'm going to have to give up one of my jobs here, I think, but I meet with them a lot. Yeah.
Can't you just be an entrepreneur at this point? Sit back and relax and let the engine run.
It's great to have good ideas, but we only get paid to execute. So
that's correct.
So we got to be very careful about chasing, the next shiny bauble. One of the things that I tell people is, and which is why you should focus on a segment, at least in the beginning, is pick one thing and do it better than everyone else. And that's what I did. I went from never having sold a house in 2012 as a realtor to being the top team in my market in less than 5 years. But that all started because I started with this focus on distress. And then from distress, I was able to generate referrals and repeat business, and more importantly, income. And then I was able to use that income as And I didn't have a transaction coordinator and an assistant and a marketing person and an inside sales agent. I was doing all that all by myself. And as I got the money to add people to take over those jobs, then I all of a sudden had free time. And then I started to expand into some of these other things that we do, like expireds and like FISBOs and like open house leads, and some of the other marketing like Facebook marketing. Those kind of things all happen as a result of an initial focus on distress.
Aram, I'm going to do both of your questions in different orders. To David, when you say being persistent with follow-ups becomes begging for business, where do you draw the line with follow-ups?
Where do I draw the line? Well, I have
Yep.
one rule, is I only do business with people who want to do business with me. So if they say they don't want to, if I'm at the door and they just don't want to do business with me and they start giving me all the reasons why they got it handled, I don't start begging. I don't turn into a salesperson. I don't try to convince them. I just look them in the eye and say, listen, I'm just here to help. I've got no agenda here. I'm not asking you, there's no cost or obligation for my advice. I understand that people are a little suspicious, that we might not have their best interests at heart. But at the end of the day, I work with a handful of homeowners who are looking to identify alternatives to foreclosure, and there's no cost or obligation. I only have one requirement, and that is that you want my help. And so I would very much like to assist you, but I need you to let me know that would be okay. Would it be okay if I assisted you by at least taking a cursory look at where you are and what you've done, and perhaps offering you some insight as to what might improve your odds of achieving your objective? And if they still say no, I leave, and then I just drip market to them. That's not begging. That's just reminding them that this guy, was here and offering to help. And I promise they're going to remember that their only cost is that you want my help. If you don't, fine, I'll go find another homeowner. No big deal. But I'm not going to persuade them.
I would make this recommendation to everybody. And it's a crazy recommendation, David. I'm about to give a crazy recommendation, so I'm prefacing it. I recommend, because it's fair season for everybody to go to the product tents and see who does the best business. My opinion, the people that do the most business in those tents selling products aren't the guys that do the stop here and let me show you this. They don't, historically. Those are the empty booths. The booths that do best always seem to be someone who's just demonstrating the product, and if it's doing exactly what it claims. That's just my historical perspective. I like going and watching that, and then watching how they subtly put in the advantages of working with that product. At the end of the day, we're just a product. David's just a product. I know we title it services, but we have to look at it sort of universally from a marketing standpoint. If you don't keep reminding people, let's say David's personal business, if he's not sending out emails or making calls, right? Or here's what's going to happen. The first time you veer away from that advocate message that you haven't branded and rebranded, and you go straight into sales mode, I think it's a domino effect, and I think it's all downhill from there. I think you pick a branding, you stick the branding, and you stay with it, and you just keep reminding your clients that that's what you are, and you ride it. Am I crazy for thinking like this, David?
No. Listen, if let's say that Help You Sell showed up in my office today and took my badge away, okay, and said, okay, you don't get to do this anymore. I wouldn't give a darn, okay, because I'm going to keep my database. The most valuable asset I have is my knowledge, okay, my intellectual property, which they can't take from me, and my database. But with those two things, I can start over anywhere in the real estate business and get it cranked up pretty quick. I'm not really too worried about that. So it is the people we know, it is the relationships we make, and it is the data that we accumulate that allows us to build and grow a business. And from my perspective, when I think about my database, what's the value of my database? Well, for me, the value of my database is I'm trying to do 1% of my database in transaction sides per year. So what that means is that if I've got 10,000 people on my database, that's 100 transactions a year. And so, and what we're seeing now is that some of these people that we put in the database 3 years ago and, and couldn't engage, we've seen a very high percentage of those people start to engage again. And now we're making contact with them, and we're having first meetings with them after 3 years of just reminding them and providing them with information on an ongoing and consistent basis. We can see periods where for months they didn't open an email. And then all of a sudden, we not only see them opening emails, but we notice the subject lines that they're opening, which tells us whether or not they're moving into the realm of buying a house versus selling the house, or both. And that data is invaluable, because now I'm just not random marketing. I'm just not killing what I can eat. I'm just not happening into somebody who's got to buy or sell a house right now. I'm building and nurturing relations with the people over a long term. So when they are ready, they think of me.
How can people reach you, David?
805-413-8000, 805-413-8000, or david@homeloanadvocates.com.
Please come join me in Pasadena, California this Friday, May the 10th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. I'll be speaking for an hour and a half or 2 hours. Fred always says he can speak for an hour or an hour and a half. It never works out that way. We will be there till 1. We will answer questions. I believe he's got it for most of the day. So for all of you that are interested in that, and of course, go to lee-honish.com, find out more about Monster Marketing, watch the latest webinar, and learn how Monster Marketing can work for you to get guaranteed face-to-face appointments.